Hey, Caroline, do you know if Nancy was coming today?
As far as I know, I can text her. Oops, where's my phone? I just had it.
No worries.
We are technically a quorum since we're 2/3, but oh my gosh, what did I do with my phone? Oh, you're not going to believe this.
I can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me? I'm not muted.
Oh, now I can hear you.
Okay, I'm not muted. I was going to say, I don't know why you couldn't hear me before. I'll text Nancy and see
Okay.
she's coming. So.
Oh, she's in the attendees.
Oh, okay, good. Oh.
Recording in progress.
Hi, sorry.
No worries. All right.
Okay.
So, welcome everyone to the October 12th, 2022 naming subcommittee meeting and keeping it an act relative to extending certain state of emergency accommodations. This meeting will be conducted remotely over Zoom. Attendance by the board members will be remote, and remote attendance shall count towards quorum. The meeting will be broadcast live and recorded on eCat. Alrighty, so our first item is, I'm going to pull it up so I don't have a hard copy.
I apologize that the printing was so small. I don't know what I was thinking when I was printing it out, but
That's okay. That's why they make Zoom.
I'll make it bigger next time.
Okay. I'm assuming this runs just like our regular meetings, so we would need to approve these minutes. So the regular school committee naming subcommittee meeting minutes from Wednesday, September 28th, 2022. Any questions, comments, or edits?
You're great, Nancy.
Thank you.
Tired, Nancy.
Just trying to get the gist of the meeting.
Oh, they're very thorough. Thank you.
Good.
Okay. So can I get a motion to approve the Easton School Committee naming subcommittee meeting minutes from Wednesday, September 8th, 2022?
So move. Okay, second to Luca. All right, you got it. So Caroline moved, Caroline and Nancy was the second. Okay.
Roll call vote.
O'Neill, yes.
Durance, yes.
DeLuca, yes.
Wow. That was easy. All right, so next, oh my gosh, is just discussion, and it says possible vote. I don't think we're voting on anything.
No.
But it was more of a discussion.
Right.
Subcommittee membership. So we kind of left it, though we had the 3 buckets that we needed to kind of address, but it made sense to start at the beginning, which was what will the committee look like, who will be on it, and then what's the process for choosing those people. And I believe that's where we left off last.
Yes, and we did talk about having a relatively small group because that's, of course, more efficient based on all the research on group meetings. But also, since the school committee, the full school committee, will be voting on any kind of policy or product, well, actually just a process that we come up with, I think that for the most part, we don't need to be voting. We can just reach consensus on things. I mean, that would be my guess, right? I mean,
so are you saying that if we come up with who we think should be on it and what that process would be, that would then go to a vote at a regular school committee meeting?
I am assuming so, because the school committee already is responsible, as you know, for accepting any kind of donation, which, you know, basically that's the end product is donations. I mean, I think we can just decide that we want the full committee to approve. I'm assuming we want them to approve what we come up with anyway. I mean, we would certainly not want to say, well, this is the process we've come up with, and then have the other 2 members say, oh, we don't like that at all. You know, so
That makes sense.
I mean, I suppose we could check legally whether we have to actually vote as a committee, but I'm not sure. You know, we're basically a working group.
Right.
It's just that because of the open meeting law, it has to be established as, and because it's school committee members, it has to be established as a committee, but it's basically a working group, correct? So
That's how I understand it. And I think it's a nice practice, if nothing else, just the courtesy to take that stand of, we'll come up with this part of it, take that to a vote. Once that's approved, then we move on to implementing the funding of people.
right, and the other two members may have some great ideas that, you know, we missed, so we can just add those. Makes it less cumbersome to have a vote on everything, for us to have a vote on everything. But anyway, so you're right. We ended up saying that we wanted to do submission to approval, create a process. I'm not sure we can do that in one meeting.
Well, probably not.
But what would you say is the first priority? The more substantial committee, or should we work on part of the actual process first that we would take to that larger committee at some point? What do you think? You know, when I talk about reaching consensus, I'm really talking about the three of us. I don't know if it would become necessary once we add additional people to take votes, because there could be, you know, different ideas presented, and then we would have to decide which one was supported by the larger portion of the largest portion of the group. So I'm assuming that we can talk about the process of bringing new individuals in, but we'll probably have a few meetings ourselves before we actually do that. What do you think?
Okay, so for the, I don't know, Nancy, do you have, I don't know if I just cut you off.
No,
Okay.
no, I agree with Caroline. Like, I think what our big purpose, right, or the next big thing is to get out there and find people that would like to be on this committee. I don't know how we go about that. I mean, do we put like a memo out there and say the subcommittee is looking for people to be on the naming committee for all the Easton Public Schools? Do we go to people? I personally, I mean, I know a lot of people, but I don't know a lot of people that would be on this committee.
Everybody.
You know what I'm saying? Or do we just, I don't know. I don't know where that next
Caroline,
level is for us.
Was the magic number you had mentioned before, was that 7 to 9?
Right.
I
Well,
believe
you know,
so, yes.
I suppose it's not magic per se, but it is based on quite a bit of research about the efficiency of working groups and committees. And once you go beyond 9, it becomes increasingly less efficient. But one of the things we talked about last time was making sure that we had that. Obviously, they would have to consent to this, but that we had key people, perhaps one from each building. So I think that in terms of the larger population, you know, having a parent representative or two, or a teacher representative or two, that's going to be I think it's going to be a very limited number. I mean, if we just put it out to the whole community and we get, you know, 70 applications, I'm not sure that, I mean, you know, at that point, we might just have to use a lottery. But, you know, for a parent representative and, say, an educator representative, an educator beyond administration. But I think we talked about, you know, Sam Cedarbaum, who will be the principal and of the new school. But it might make sense to have an administrator from each of the schools, which already, if you have the three of us plus 4 administrators, you're already up to 7. So that would give us 1 or 2. You could have almost like a 1 parent representative, 1 educator. People could apply for that. I don't know how we would get the word out. We could, of course, then ask Felicia to send an email to parents and to the larger educator group. But of course, there is you know, an issue if we get 50 applicants of each category. It's not going to be, go ahead.
So, I was just going to say, it's not, I mean, great, the parents are great, I understand that, but there are people in our community. So for example, Mr. who worked on the first override, why can't I think of his name? No, but he also was instrumental helping like Easton, the Children's Museum and.
Oh, yeah, Brian Hoffman?
Who?
Brian Hoffman?
Yes, Mr. Hoffman, yeah. Like, he's not a parent in the system, but yet, and I'm sure he's retired and, you know, probably doing
Don't be
something
so
fun.
sure.
Well, I don't know. So, you know what I'm saying? You know that there's people out there that are influential, but actually, you know, he was on that first group, he was with the Children's Museum, but there could be somebody else, you're talking about a parent, but maybe it doesn't have to be anybody that has kids. It could just be a community member that's influential.
No, that makes perfect sense. And in fact, you know, the reason they had established that second group, the original naming campaign folks had established that second group, was that was a group of people that they felt would be influential and would be able to promote the fundraising. As I told you, the two people I spoke with said that didn't actually end up happening, although a couple of those people did make generous donations themselves for a space. But beyond that, it didn't seem to work the way they had envisioned, having a whole group that was just sort of community influencers, if you will, to use one of the new.
I'm wondering if we want to try to make sure that we have somebody included that, I don't know what background I'm talking about, but would have a background that would be able to actually contribute to, this is how you value spaces. Because we talked about not hiring a consultant. So is there somebody in the community that has that expertise?
So Michelle,
Yes?
my best friend is Google.
It's Google.
It turns out that there are lots of schools out there, school districts, that have naming campaigns, and some of them just list the prices. And it's actually, or the, you know, suggested donation or the required donation, however you want to phrase it. But I haven't had a chance. I really apologize. I intended to do a lot of research and I ended up doing very little so far. But there are a couple of issues I wanted to bring up. But one of them is that, in fact, one that I just looked at is in Iowa. It's a smaller school district, but it literally listed a price for every single space. And interestingly enough, the prices were quite high. And it's a school district of like 1,100 kids. And it's in Iowa, where the cost of living is much lower. And also, you know, I suspect people would be, you know, less inclined to want to donate. Like a couple of spaces, I think, were like $1 million. That's if you named a whole school. But that was if you named the actual school, which obviously is not something we're going to be able to do. But there were many spaces for $100,000. And this is Iowa. So I'm thinking that if I have a chance to look at some more, there were a few more that I just sort of glanced at, we may be able to kind of come up with something pretty, you know, based on research, but not based on hiring a very expensive consultant.
Okay.
I mean, what do you think? I had no idea that it would be that information would be so accessible. But I should have known. I mean, like I said, Google is my friend. But
the other thing too is we could make up a template, you know, classrooms, this, you know, classroom at OA, classroom at Blair James, classroom and or, you know, whatever spaces we're looking for. And as a committee, once we get our 7 to 9, however many we decide to have, then come to a consensus, because you know, you can look at many different schools, but what does Easton want? And I think we've kind of not learned a lesson, but, you know, that whole, nobody was buying anything at the rates that were on this thing, on the pamphlet. So, you know what I'm saying?
Well, that isn't strictly speaking true. A lot of spaces were already named and had
Yes.
gotten the full price. We just had one instance, and I actually feel guilty in retrospect. You know, I was never on that naming committee, the original naming campaign, so I hadn't paid as much attention as I probably should have, because my feeling is, had I had the information I subsequently got from, you know, the people who were very involved in that campaign, the one instance really that was, you know, widely publicized, I think that might have gone in a different direction. So I think that we just have to, now one of the things that the school that I looked at with all the prices did say that under certain circumstances, if it became clear that a lesser price would be more logical or whatever, that they were willing, that the school board was willing to consider that. You know, it was left open to some degree. But I think we shouldn't necessarily, you know, I think the reason why those initial spaces that were priced higher, or in some cases not higher, but got the full recommended amount, why that happened was that the campaign was just beginning, and it was a high school, so that makes a difference. I mean, I do think that if we continue to have spaces in the high school open for naming, those will probably be higher than classrooms at, you say classroom, at other schools. I think that's, you know, high schools are always considered the flagship school of a district. I mean, that's just a reality. But this list that I looked at did say it was 3 elementary schools, a high school, and a middle school. So in that sense, it was just like our district. And, you know, it varied with the schools. So, but Nancy, I do think now that you mentioned it about that having a couple of community members, I mean, the reality is, we've talked about this before, having 1 or 2 parents represent 7,000 or 8,000 parents just logically doesn't fly. You know, I mean, it's not really, it's a sort of symbolic gesture, but you certainly couldn't have any one parent claim to represent the views of 7,000 people. You know, that just makes no sense at all. Same thing even with teachers. I mean, we have 550 actual teachers. We have other staff as well. I'm sure that there are, you know, very widely differing opinions among teachers about the way to approach something like this. So, you know, we might have one teacher, but we couldn't realistically claim that that teacher literally represented the views of all teachers. So I'm not sure, you know, we need to decide, but I like your idea of having somebody who has an extensive history with the district, who had kids go through the schools, for example. Certainly Brian Hoffman had 4 kids go through the schools. John Morley, same thing. He's another person who's been incredibly involved with the community and with the district. So I really like that idea. I think, like I said, I don't think one parent that we would just draw a name out of a hat could possibly be seen as representing the whole parent community.
I agree. Yeah.
So do you think, so if we go, just say hypothetically with 9, and we're 3 of them, so you have 6, we have 4 schools, which would leave 2 community people. Do you think that we need to have an admin from every school? Like, should we weigh heavier potentially at administration, or heavier on potentially community members and community involvement?
I think that is a good point too. Maybe we should, I mean, as you say that, I'm thinking certainly we would hope to have Sam Cedarbaum, because that's the new school and probably the most likely to draw attention in terms of these opportunities. But maybe an administrator from, say, the high school, which would be the other end of things, and also has had some experience over, you know, they've already had experience with this process. Yeah, maybe that would make more sense, and then you'd have room for 4 other people. Wait, am I right? Wait, yeah, 4 other people.
I mean, I don't want anyone to feel slighted. I just, like, what type of input are we looking for? I guess, I don't know.
And I think as far as administration, I believe the 4 principals at some point would have to be at least involved in 1 or 2 meetings with us, even if they weren't on the committee, just so that all the principals are in the same ballpark with us as far as this is what our plan is. You all have rooms and areas that could possibly be named. So they don't have to be on the committee and come to every single meeting. But I think initially when we start making the list of classrooms and gymnasiums and, you know, whatever, cafeterias and libraries, that they all get a say about their own school because they know their school better than anyone else.
So
Next point, yeah. Well,
what if
Michelle
we to 10 and have each school represented and maybe 3 community people? Since we're not
I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt. Go ahead.
No, I'm just thinking out loud, so go ahead.
Well, in terms of what Nancy said, you know, it is going to be an open meeting. And we could literally invite, you know, we could have, when we're going to discuss a given topic or even a given school, we would invite the representative from that school, the principal or designee, principal's designee, to the meeting to, you know, kind of inform us of their views and so on. In other words, it's almost like having, you know, you'd have guest speakers or something. You know, they don't have to be members of the committee that would have to attend every meeting or would be asked to attend every meeting, but they could certainly come to every meeting. I mean, it's an open meeting. They could be there. And if we have, you know, some meetings we could have public comment and then anybody could express their opinion, or just, you know, probably a small, well, like a very focused topic like that, you could, you know, essentially assume that anyone there could express an opinion. I mean, there'd have to be some limitations. You wouldn't want someone to hijack the meeting, but what do you think? I mean, it doesn't really have to be limited to, you could have 9 official members who could be voting members or whatever, and that it still would all have to go to this full school committee for approval. So, you know, the votes are sort of soft votes.
Be like a vote to move something forward.
Right.
To get to that process.
Right, or a vote, yes, to move a specific proposal forward, yes, to the school committee. So I think in a way, we could have it both ways. We could have an official committee that's, say, 9 people, but also have regular guests that would be welcomed, and really anyone would be welcomed, I suppose, because it's an open meeting. You just would have whoever showed up. I mean, it would mean that they'd have to be, the tricky part is if we're going to remain remote, which we probably are for a couple of months anyway, can we invite those people in, you know, one by one to express their opinion, or can they just be given the code and be in, but sort of be in the audience? I mean, that's the tricky part. I know that Dr. Brawl has had some concerns about the idea of any kind of hybrid model. Even when we went to in person, it would be difficult to, people could watch, but it would be difficult to involve anybody directly in the meeting.
Well, we could certainly let non-members who are admin in, or school employees.
Yeah, so if we already had a few community members, as Nancy, I think, wisely suggested, and they could be community members, obviously they would be community members who have a history with the school district. I mean, I know there are many fine community members, but that, you know, haven't really been involved with the district over the years. And then they wouldn't necessarily be official members, so they wouldn't necessarily come every meeting, but you would have admin from each building, as you said, that would be sort of the key people that would inform our deliberations, so to speak.
So I'm just going to toss this out there, because I know we talked about having Sam on. Would it be more equitable to not officially have any of the admins, but and have the 6 to 9, 3 of us and 3 to 6 more community people, and invite the admins in as we're discussing their particular school.
That's an idea. I mean, I was only thinking of Sam because, you know, the big push, of course, is going to be the new school. I think the idea of naming spaces in a brand new school is something that would have more traction than, you know.
Yeah.
But in that light, Caroline, you know, because they're in a brand new school, he's going to be overwhelmed with so many things to do. And I think I like the idea that the administrators can come in, whether they come in one at a time or whatever, however we do it, rather than, you know, making them come to our meeting every single, whenever we have them. And we'd still have their input, we'd still have their thoughts and how they want to represent their school with this naming campaign. Whereas I think having a variety of townspeople, elementary parents, secondary parents, people in the community that have a history, as you said, with education. You know, whatever. I mean, there could be a new person out there that we don't even know that's chomping at the bit to do something here.
Well, that's true. I mean, I still think it's going to be difficult to choose parents, specifically parents, because if we do have a lot of interest, I think that really the only, it's tricky because when you choose one person after many people have gone to the trouble of probably submitting an application, so to speak, with the reasons why they feel they would be a good addition to the committee, you know, you have a lot of disappointed people then because you can only choose 1 or 2 of those individuals. I mean, the advantage of your idea of the community people who have a history with the schools is that, you know, there's a very solid reason for picking those particular people. So it's not a random selection. It's a selection based on the known history with the district. But I think you're probably right that we would have to have a couple of parents. I mean, if we didn't have the administrators as official members and were invited, either, like you said, they could be invited individually or 2 at a time or whatever. I think that's actually a good idea, and it does take them off the hook because not even just Sam. I mean, all of our principals are just straight out. So it does make sense to not ask them to do just one more thing. By the way, that we keep saying make them come, but we can't make them come anyway. So I think that makes sense. So then we start with the 3 of us again. Now that we've made the principal's role, you know, sort of periodic and optional.
Auxiliary.
Yeah. Right. Then that does give us more flexibility. I think we should focus on if we could find as many as 3 community members who have a history with the district and are known for, you know, their volunteering in the town and, you know, their commitment to the town and the district. That would be really helpful. And then you could have a couple of parents, but we might have to have a lottery. I mean, I don't know how to make it fair. I mean, to try to talk about individual characteristics or qualifications of a group of parents is really hard to do. And it's a public meeting, so we'd have to do it in public. And I think that's pretty tricky. What do you think about that?
I do agree that could.
But I also think, yeah. Go ahead, Michelle.
No, go ahead.
No, I didn't mean to step on you, but I just feel like if somebody is interested in this naming committee and they make their thoughts known that they want to be on this committee, I personally don't see the door being bashed down to get on another committee because it's like the same people over and over and over again that want to be on a committee. Do you know what I mean? So And who knows, there could be some new people right there waiting to come in, and that would be awesome, yes. But how do you choose? You throw their names in a hat and pick them out and say, all right, let's go. So I don't know. I don't know how, I agree, Caroline, that it could be very difficult and disappointing for those people that really want to be on it that don't get on it. So I have no idea. I mean, they have a hard time getting people on PAC and PTO and, school councils and.
Now, that's
So
a good
maybe
point.
our focus isn't the parent as a qualification. Maybe our focus becomes a community member who might a chance be a parent.
In my notes, I put
Well,
townspeople. I
if
did
we
not
could.
put parent. I put
Yeah.
townspeople. Townspeople. And, it doesn't have to be a parent of a kid. It can just be an interested Easton citizen that's concerned about our buildings and how they're going to survive and how can we make them better. And maybe this naming thing brings more interest to the townspeople of Easton because now there's a room named out, the Caroline O'Neill classroom.
No.
The school committee for 30 years,
You know what, I love the way you both think. You know how when there's a vacancy in a committee, usually it's the select board, but that people have to submit a little sort of blurb about why they feel that they're qualified to fill that vacancy.
Mm-hmm.
So you do make a good point about at least having some sort of vetting. In other words, not just saying anybody who wants to can put their names in the hat and we're going to draw a couple of names and those will be the people. Because, as you sort of implied, those might not be the people who were actually the most interested and the most informed and, the most useful to the committee. But if you had, people had to submit a sort of statement about why they feel they can make a contribution to the committee that's meaningful, then I think that would probably significantly limit the number of applicants that you would have, frankly, because it's just more work. And then I'm getting somebody's calling me, but I'll have to. Don't know how to stop it. Okay, there we go. If it's a little more work, I think we'd have fewer applicants, and then we really would probably, we could decide for ourselves which of the applicants seem to actually be in a position to make a meaningful contribution, and then those people could go in a hat, and that might only be, a dozen people or something like that. And then, you have a sort of combination of both making sure that you have people that seem qualified, but also that there's a sort of randomness to it so that people don't feel that we chose one person over another because they wrote an extra sentence in their application or something, So what do you think? Just sort of a combination of the two methods?
Yeah. The other thing that as you were talking, I was thinking of, so, Leisha could definitely send something out on a parent email kind of thing. But also it could go on the Easton Town Crier. It could go on in the Easton Journal or whatever it's called now. Or whatever other ways there are to get the word out. And just say, we were starting this campaign up again, and we're looking for people that want to help in making some ground rules for naming spaces in all 4 Easton Public School buildings. And what you need to do to be on it, or what you must fill out this application, which includes, a paragraph about why you feel that you would be an asset to our community, to our group.
That's what the town does when they solicit volunteers for the town committees.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you wanted to be on the recreation committee, you would go on the town site, you filled out a application of sorts, but you do have to say, what your experience is, what, why you want to be on it, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
So we could maybe model it after that process.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I totally agree, yeah. And I agree with Caroline, like, you can't just say, all right, put your name in it, everybody that wants to be on it, put your name in that. I do like, the part about, that you said about, submit a statement about why you want to be on this committee, and what do you think your,
Contribution could be, yeah.
yes,
Or,
what
but
something
we're
like
talking, but we're really talking about parents, right? I mean, we
that.
actually
No,
would
I'm
like to.
talking about everybody.
Well,
I'm
okay,
talking
but let's think about that a minute.
Okay.
I don't actually think the kinds of people we were talking about earlier in terms of community members like Brian and John are going to just apply.
Oh, yeah.
But I think that these are people you'd want to reach out to. And we already know what their qualifications are. We already know what their contributions have been in the past.
Mhm.
So I'm thinking that there would be a couple of categories because, parents, it's a little bit different. You have probably honestly, I do think that there would be a number of parents who might be interested in this.
Mhm.
And so it would be good to be able to vet them in terms of their qualifications. But as I said, we're not really qualified to weigh qualifications in a very professional way, but we can in a sort of general way. I mean, if someone says, I'd just really like to be on it, I think it would be fun. That's not really someone who has talked about their contribution, their potential contribution.
Mhm.
So, so I'm thinking that would reduce the number of people who applied if we have sort of vetting rights initially. And then, we pick the top candidates and put those in a hat for like a lottery. So you could have a couple of parents that way. But I do think the community members are sort of in a different, particularly those that have, their kids have already graduated. They may not be really focused on the schools right now, so they might not even be aware that we were, starting this campaign. So I don't see them as quite in the same category.
Maybe you talked about categories, Carolyn, and that got me thinking. Maybe we so we're talking roughly the maximum 6 more spots. We've already taken admin out of it in an official capacity.
Right.
So we could say maybe as a committee, we say we're gonna personally invite 3 people or 4 people and do a lottery for the other 3 or 4 people or something like that. So that you have some of the targeted interest, and then that's one category, and then a more public general interest as another category. I don't know. Maybe that makes it way too complicated.
No, I like it.
No, I think it's two categories. Community leaders, I guess you could call it almost. For one, that we would reach out to, and then the other would be. I don't know if you want to have the other 3. You could have 2 community leaders, and then, let's see. We have 3 of us. We had 2 community leaders, so now we're up to 5. So we could then have as many as, say, 2 parents and 2 teachers, or 2 parents and 2 educators of whatever type. You could certainly, we're not eliminating paras or nurses or anybody else. It's just that, again, even for those people, you'd hope to have some sort of process where they would talk about what kind of contribution they were able to make.
Right.
I mean, I'm not necessarily saying 2 and 2. It could be 3 and 1, parent to teacher or whatever. That you folks need to think about that. But I'm just thinking.
Does it even have to be a parent and teacher? Could it be like we have an interest in certain people that we feel might be very helpful, and we invite them, and then the other 3 or 4 or whatever that other number is could be anyone from the community. Do they have to be a teacher or a parent? Could it just be somebody? You might be the librarian at the Ames Library or something like that. And you may not have a kid, you might not be a teacher, you might not be a parent per se, or one of the people we reached out to personally, but you have a lot you could contribute.
No, that's a really good point. The only problem is that I think that there's always an expectation that we have. I know that I'm sort of contradicting myself because I said obviously one or two people can't represent the views of 7,000 people realistically. On the other hand, I think there's always an expectation that we at least have that one symbolic parent representative in pretty much any committee that we form. That's not just the 5 of us. You know what I mean? The superintendent's committees almost always include a parent or two. Even the working groups that we had during the pandemic to create those 3 models of teaching and learning, we had one parent basically, but we always have had, for just symbolic reasons, at least one parent, but at least we'd be ensuring that the 1, 2, or 3 parents were able to make a meaningful contribution based on their own expertise or experiences or whatever.
So, what are your thoughts on the 2 community members that we reach out to, and 1 parent from each school? So that would be the other 4.
Well, that makes sense, but now we don't have a teacher or an educator. I mean, you're not, we may not, we don't have to. But if we did that, we don't have to stick with 9. We could have, if it becomes a voting group, we would have to move to 11 because you always have to have an uneven number for a voting group. Or you can have, you know what? You can also have non-voting and voting members. That's what we have on the school planning committee. We have a larger committee, but there are, of course, obviously the consultants and so on, the architects are not voting members. But in addition, we have a couple of members that are not voting members, but are important contributors. They have information or whatever that is helpful to the committee. An example is David Conley. He's not a voting member of the school planning committee, but he's at every meeting, and he has been able to, answer a lot of questions about just operations in the district that we've needed answers to. So anyway, I do feel like to not have a teacher would be perhaps a mistake. I don't know. If no teacher exhibited, I'm sorry, I didn't mean, but if no teacher wanted to be on it, then, we just go for another parent. But anyway, go ahead, Nancy, I'm sorry.
No, I agree. I think we definitely need somebody that works for the Easton Public Schools, an Easton Public School employee, and it could be in any realm, right. Like you were saying before, like a nurse, custodian, whatever. Everybody's important. You keep mentioning 7,000. Is that the number of parents of our current student load?
No, I made that up, but we have what, about 3,500 students now.
Yeah, about that.
And presumably most of them they don't all have 2 parents, obviously, sadly, but most of them do have 2 parents, one way or another. It may not be an intact family, but it's still 2 parents. Some cases it's just a guardian. But I was just throwing that number out there because technically if you doubled the number of students that,
right.
If you had.
Okay. I was just curious, you kept saying that and I go, that must be the number.
Where is she getting that? No, I actually, probably we could find out from the superintendent exactly how many parents and guardians, but guardians are just as, important.
And we may be putting the cart before the horse here because we have no idea how many parents or Easton Public School people are even interested in being on a committee. So, we could end up with the 3 of us and 2 other people, so, which is fine. That's what happens. But so I'm in my categories, we have 3 school committee. I put 2 EPS personnel and 2 parents.
Okay.
That's
and,
7.
And two community leaders. So to
Okay.
speak.
And that is fluid. That's not etched in stone. So
No.
3 school committee, 2 EPS employees of some kind, 2 parents, any level, and 2 community people. 2 community people. Okay.
I would specify though that the parents and the educators would be subject to, a brief application process.
Okay,
Where
so
they would just, all they need is 2 sentences, why they want to be on the committee, what contribution they feel they can make.
Okay, so then I started application. So name, email, and then they would respond to us. We'd put our email on the application. And then how do you want to pose the question? What do you want them to write about?
Well, we want some way of having them talk about why they're interested in this committee, and then what contribution they feel they can make based on their own experiences or positions, something like that. Someone could say my contribution is that I can talk a lot. That would be my application. But, but it's got to be something that would be relevant, a relevant contribution to the.
Okay. So why are you interested in being on this committee, and what
do you feel you could?
Wait a minute. What's the word I want? What something do you bring to this committee? What
Qualities, what,
qualifications?
Okay. No.
No.
That's not what I'm thinking. What?
You could say, how do you feel you can make a relevant contribution to this committee, or something like that?
Okay. How do you feel you can make a contribution or relevant contribution?
Well, presumably people would understand if you said contribution that you meant, I was in another district and we studied this extensively or whatever, that it would be irrelevant, that's relevant, but they could just say, I'm a deep thinker and I think I have a lot of good ideas, which isn't necessarily specifically relevant. So I don't know. I'm
say something like what experiences, skills, or talents.
Do you feel you would bring to the
able
committee?
to bring?
Say that
that's
again,
better.
Michelle, say that again.
Something like what experiences, skills, or talents would you be able to bring to the
To
committee?
the committee.
Okay.
That's much better. Thank you, Michelle. Yeah,
Would you
much better.
be able to bring
To the committee.
this
Or
committee?
to the subcommittee, whatever. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter. We'll just call it the committee, right?
Okay, got it. All right.
Much better. Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah.
And then our method of getting this out would start with just an email home to all parents and staff.
So that's a good question. There's a couple of options. We could do, the thing about the people who are most likely to volunteer are people that are already volunteering for things. So you could do just, like the PACs and things like that, and just ask for them to put that out. Or maybe just, you're right, maybe just an email to all parents and educators that we're, starting a naming campaign for all 4 schools. And that
it's not educators, it's EPS employees.
Right. My guess is educators would be more, when you talk about making the contribution, because,
Yes, yes, for sure.
Probably, I'm already thinking, if we could get someone in the business department at the high school or something like that, that would be a relevant experience and skill.
Right.
Who is is it Goldberg? I'm trying to remember
Right.
the senior project guy. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, he's
Frank
just,
Goldberg.
yeah.
Great.
Somebody like that, I mean, you would hope. We can give people a nudge.
Yeah.
You know, have you thought
Right.
of applying? I mean, not say you should, you know, just say, have you thought of applying for this?
That happens on every committee.
Sure,
There's
sure.
always a, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So can you just say again what information will be on there? The name?
Sure. So the application, which will include our 3 emails. What I'll do is I'll print something up in bigger font than I did our I'm sorry it was so small.
I was able to read it.
It looked great on the computer. I didn't even, and then I printed it out later on. I was like, what the heck is this? Anyway, all right, so the application. So our 3 emails, and that'll be name and their email with why are you interested in being on this committee? What experiences, skills, or talents would be able,
Would you
would
bring?
would you be able to bring to this committee? Does that sound right? That doesn't sound right. What experience, skills, or talents could you bring? Would you bring to this committee? Not be able to. What experience,
Right.
skills, or talents would you bring to this committee?
Do we need any other, not that it matters, but any other demographics like address or telephone number or is it just email time?
I was just thinking, keeping it right now at emails, just, I don't want to get too personal right now.
Okay.
Just a quick,
It's up to
so
you.
Nancy, but I think maybe just on your 2 sentences there, why do you want to be on, I would just call it the naming subcommittee.
I know, I'm gonna change
And then,
it.
right, and then at the end, just say the committee. In other words, you're referring to the same committee that you've already specifically
Yes.
identified,
yes,
so it
that's
doesn't sound, it's not just committee, that's all. Yeah,
So is that okay? Why are you interested
Sounds
in
good.
being on the naming,
the Easton Public
Yeah.
Schools naming subcommittee.
right, whatever, I'll
And
come
then-
up with a name.
Right, and then what talent, skills, et cetera, do you bring to the committee?
To the committee, okay,
Right.
okay,
I mean, a subcommittee is a committee, so,
yeah, I know, I'm just gonna put committee, not subcommittee.
right.
Okay,
And then, am I understanding we're gonna ask it to go out? Should we come back to the next meeting before we ask for it to go out, or should we?
so.
You mean
what
in the
I'll
next
do-
school committee meeting?
Why can
No,
I,
a committee meeting.
why can't I put this application together, email it to you guys? You say, oh, no, fix this, no, fix that, oh, no, I like it, blah, blah. And then at the next meeting, we'll approve it officially and then start sending it out. When's our next
Can we
meeting?
do that?
I don't know.
As long as we only respond to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. I mean, we're just a subcommittee. It's not like,
Well, we're still subject to the open
To the
meeting law.
rules,
But
true.
we aren't taking votes right now, so it doesn't, it technically, if you're not taking a vote on something, it's not.
right. And the only reason I'm sending it out to you guys first, and then, so at the next meeting, we're not like, oh, you should fix this, fix this. It'll all be fixed, hopefully, but then maybe it won't be fixed and we'll fix it again. When is our next meeting? Let me look.
So our next meeting, we can change it, but right now it's tentatively scheduled for
November 9th, yeah.
9th.
Yeah, great. So that's 1, 2, 3, that's a month. 4
Yeah,
weeks.
we're doing once a month. I mean, we could, you
Yeah.
think we should add a
No,
meeting in?
no, I think that's fine. There's still a lot going on, and like we talked about last time with the way the economy is right now and things like that, somebody's got money lying around, they want to do something with it, come on, we'll take it. But, I don't think it's like such a rush that we have to be, okay, let's get it done. Meanwhile, before November 9th, if you know anybody that you want to reach out to, Caroline, I'm going to say don't reach out to John Morley. He is on so many.
I know, he's on 57 committees already.
Oh my God, that poor guy. I'm on 2 committees with him. And
no, he's incredible. Yeah, I know.
And he has committees like in his personal life too, like not even dealing with the town. When you said his name, I was like, oh my God, he's going to kill you. But
All right.
you know who? But I'm going to ask Brian. I'm going to talk to him. I'll talk to him.
Good. I mean, I think he is still working. I mean, I think he did leave the Children's Museum, but I believe he did find another job and is still working. So I'm not sure that he'll have the time, but we'll see.
Even if I talk to him and he knows of somebody else.
Right.
It's like that. Tell 3 people and tell 3 more and
Yeah.
Very mathematical.
We have 2 community people, right?
So this was my list, Michelle. 3 school committee, 2 EPS employees, 2 parents, and 2 community people.
Right.
Okay.
So, would you each like to be tasked with finding a community person?
I'll look around and I'll talk to my contacts and who knows a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy, that kind of thing. Sure.
Yeah, Nancy fortunately has 24,000 contacts.
Well,
I have 2.
I don't have anybody that's contributing gazillion dollars here and there.
But that's not. Yeah, it's also just someone who would be comfortable helping with the process and with the whole,
Yeah.
But I'd have to think about it because John Morley and Brian Hoffman would have been. But poor John, I agree. He's in everything.
There are more people. I go to the Chamber of Commerce things with Jack, and I go as a member of the Easton Historical Society, and there's a lot of people there that I didn't think I knew, but I know, and there may be contacts there. So I'm gonna look at all my connections.
Okay, so Nancy's looking at connections. So
I can try too, but I think Nancy's got a gold mine there.
Well, not gold. It might be aluminum, but it's not gold. Okay.
All right, so for our
Michelle, one more thing, sorry. So getting the message out, email the PACs, email to all parents and EPS employees, and then also maybe...
are you doing that between now and the next meeting?
No. I just wanted to get it into the minutes.
Yeah.
So Easton Town Crier maybe?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I'm not, do you need to, if all the parents are going to get an email, do we need to also have the PACs and the PTAs?
No, but I think somebody said that.
Well, we talked about doing it that way or doing a general
I'll put possible getting the message out. And I'll put Easton Journal. And where was the other place that you guys said when people are looking for committee members, where else do they put it? Anywhere?
We had talked about, application process, but I'm trying to think. I don't think we had another.
Oh, okay.
Well, just the PTAs and PACs, but I don't.
Okay.
I mean, the high school doesn't really have that now, so.
Okay.
I know Leisha did announce it some months ago at the Parent Superintendent Advisory Committee. She and I talked about it afterwards, and she did I think she a little bit jumped the gun because this was months ago, and she kind of said, would anybody be interested? And a couple of people raised their hand. And I told her that was, something that needed to be determined. We couldn't just say, do people raise their hand at the superintendent advisory committee, we're going to have a fairer process than that, because that's just one small group of people that, you know, were given the heads up about this really months before anybody else. So, you know, those two people may very well, you know, put together a little application and they may be under consideration. But, you know, I think we do have to have a process that seems to the degree possible to be fair to all parents.
The other thing, would it be feasible, like a high school student? You were talking about the business department.
No.
Okay.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I feel strongly about this.
Okay.
This
That's
is,
fine.
you know, we need to raise money, and I just don't see a high school. I know there are some very creative and extremely capable and knowledgeable high school students. And, you know, I love kids. I wouldn't have been doing this for all these years if I didn't think that they are, you know, all those things we talk about, the hope for the future and everything. But I just kind of feel like everyone will feel that they have to make sure to listen to the student and get all their ideas. But I think we need to have a committee that's just ready to zero in on the issues and get going.
Okay.
That said, I don't think we're in a hurry, like you said, Nancy. It would be the worst timing ever to do a big advertising campaign about these naming opportunities now. I mean, right now, the economy being what it is and inflation, et cetera, this would be a huge mistake. It would be, you know, we would be accused of really not reading the room, so to speak. I mean, so the conditions are such that it may be months before we really have any kind of official announcement of this opportunity.
Okay.
So for the next meeting, I'm like brainstorming our next steps in my head. Let's say that the application would come back for, if there's any edits or whatever, then maybe we can vote on a final application. I don't think that has to go to school committee.
No.
Right.
All right, and then once we do that, so a vote, I'm just tentatively writing an agenda and talking out loud with you guys. Vote on an application, set up, vote on a date range for people to apply. Come back with, I'll come back to the community people. Maybe we can also start to work on, once we're ready to send out the application, not really a job qualification. What is it we're going to be looking for?
Oh, yeah, good point, because we're asking what skills, et cetera.
Right. So if we can come up with that kind of like, what is it that we're looking for, and then how do you meet this? So maybe that's something we can start to talk about next time.
Yeah, we need to establish our own criteria for,
That was the word I was trying to think of the word was.
Yeah, for for the individuals, well, criteria for, in terms of qualifications of the individuals to join the committee, something like that. Yeah, that's a good point, because.
And then, so we have November 9th is this one. We have a
December 14th is the one after that.
Right, no. So what I'm wondering is, do we want to establish the community people, get that vote? I guess that would be a school committee, who we want to send to school committee for a vote, have them on board as part of the process of the other 4 people.
Why? I don't understand why the school committee, the 5 of us, have to vote on who's going to be on our committee.
I don't know. I'm asking. I have no idea.
I don't see.
No, I don't think they do.
Okay.
I don't think they do, and I don't
I
think
think we
that's-
just make our own committee, and then when it comes time to make decisions like, this
Okay.
is how much it's gonna
Okay.
cost, this is what we're going to print, this is what's going to the public. This little brochure is going to the public. Then I think that's when we get the school committee vote.
Okay. So would it be a realistic goal to have come up with these 2 community members to be able to attend on the 9th?
Well, I'm not
It's
sure.
possible.
Oh, you think that early? I don't know.
I
guess you could.
don't know.
I'm not sure why we would yet want to add 2 additional people. I don't think, you're kind of saying you think they could help us with the qualifications of the others. Is that what you're saying, Michelle?
Yeah, and the whole.
But I kind of feel like we could make a decision about whether people seem genuinely able to make a contribution, as well as a community member. I mean, it's possible a community member could say, "Oh, that person has this background, and so they'd be ideal." But the application is so short and kind of open that I'm not sure they really know that person was, more qualified than the next. But also, well, I don't know. And plus it means that we would have, right now, we're like kind of talking very freely among the 3 of us. And I apologize that I keep interrupting people. But, I think that will put a constraint on the discussion in a way. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Yeah.
So between now and the 9th, you guys are gonna look for some community people. But for our next agenda, we'll talk about approving an application, setting up a day range for people to apply, and some type of criteria. Does that seem like a logical next step?
Yes, I agree, Michelle. Yep.
Are you okay with that, Caroline?
Yes, and Michelle, to your point about adding the community members earlier, I do think it's not a bad idea to maybe add them a little bit before the others so that it gives us some time. I'm just saying that, we probably having at least one more meeting of just the 3 of us gives us a little more flexibility.
Fair enough. Okay. So do you feel that we're at a good stopping point for now? We've hashed out our numbers, who's going to be what, or how many of each. We have you guys working on the community people, and then our next step would be how we approach the teachers, parents, or whatever, and that would be the application, setting up the dates, and establishing a criteria.
Yes.
Yes.
Go
I
ahead.
have a question. I forgot what the agenda doesn't really have an open discussion part, does it?
No, because it was a workshop, so I didn't add that.
Okay.
And
So we can't, so I'm thinking that maybe going forward, we should have something like, committee notes or something. Because I did want to, I think we're fine with my just telling you about the fact that, I had started to do this research. But the other thing that I came across, even though it was developed some time ago, Duke University, there was a white paper, whatever you call it, that they put together about potential conflicts with the First Amendment in naming rights efforts in schools. It's 57 pages, and I've only gotten through the first couple of pages because I only discovered it earlier today. But I'm going to try to at least get through that before our next meeting because, there may be some things that we need to be very careful about. That was sort of the implication of the first few paragraphs that I read, was
Right.
that, people needed to take certain kinds of precautions to make sure that they're not in violation of the First Amendment in these naming rights opportunities or whatever. So that, which I found, the whole concept I found quite fascinating. I just haven't had a chance to read the 57 pages yet.
I don't think Lynn needs to post the agenda until the November 7th. So, I mean, we certainly can add agenda items as your research allows.
Yeah, or you can just, put committee member notes or something like that. And then, I mean, it's not like anybody's going to vote on whether to take that research into consideration or something like that. It's really just, of general interest. Yeah.
Committee member notes, okay. But I'm still leaving public comment off because I'm not really out of
Oh,
place.
yeah. No, that's, yeah, I agree.
Not necessary.
Doesn't really seem appropriate, yeah. Okay. Are we good?
Good.
Are you good, Caroline? Anything else?
Yeah, just to your point, I'm not even sure that we'll ever have public comment for this particular committee because, it's going to be comprised of members of the public at some point also. And I think that you could really have meetings not be very efficient if you were taking lots of comments. So I'm not sure that we even need to have that ever. I mean, we might change our minds. We have every right to do that, but I'm not sure that makes sense.
All right, fair enough. All right, so I think we have things to do between now and the 9th and what we want to tackle on the 9th. And I think we're in a good spot. I think we're making progress.
Yeah.
All right, so unless there's anything else, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second, DeLuca.
Roll call vote.
O'Neill, yes.
Durant, yes?
DeLuca, yes.
All right, great. Thanks,
You
guys.
guys are great. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, thanks.
Bye.
Recording stopped.